Hey guys, tonight we're slipping backward through time, not gently, not slowly, but all at once. One blink, and you're no longer in your cozy bed with clean sheets, air conditioning, and the faint buzz of your phone on the nightstand. Instead, you're waking up in 1840s London. You're cold, you're itchy, you're already late for work, and that bed you're lying on? It's barely straw, and it smells like wet coal and someone else's socks. Congratulations, you've just become a Victorian maid. And no, there's no snooze button. You probably won't survive this. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where you're all tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. It's pitch black when your eyes snap open, and something about the silence feels wrong until you hear it. A single bell clangs through the servants' corridor. You're late. You scramble upright, head spinning. The thin linen shift scratches your skin. Your fingers sting from the cold air, and the floorboards bite your soles. No mattress, just burlap stuffed with straw that's poking out at odd angles. There's no time to think. You grab the coarse dress folded at the foot of your tiny cot, stiff brown wool, fastened with mismatched buttons. It smells faintly of damp earth, coal dust, and someone else's tears. Or maybe that's just your new signature scent. The window in your room is barely larger than a book, crusted over with soot. You press your face to it and catch a glimpse of gray fog curling like cigarette smoke over rooftops. This is London. Loud, choking, relentlessly alive London. But you're 5 floors down in a servant's wing, invisible to the city above. A second bell, louder, sharper. You yank on a pair of boots that could easily double as medieval torture devices and stumble into the corridor. Welcome to the morning ritual. Down the narrow back stairs. The air thickens with smoke from last night's fires, and your breath fogs in front of you. You reach the kitchen just as Cook's voice cuts the air like a cleaver. She's shouting about cold stoves, lazy hands, and the biscuits being as hard as carriage wheels again. You try to shrink yourself as small as possible, sliding past the footman who smells overpoweringly of hair pomade and regret. You're the scullery maid. That's Victorian for, you're at the bottom of the food chain. Your job? Everything the other maids refuse to do. Think. Scrubbing blackened pots the size of bathtubs, cleaning fireplace grates with vinegar and sand, and hauling water until your spine starts to question your life choices. You reach the copper sink. It's freezing. Your fingers go numb before you've even dunked the first iron pot. The soot clings like ink, and the more you scrub, the more it laughs at your efforts. Historians still argue whether Victorian scullery maids had higher mortality rates from exhaustion or just boredom. You're starting to see why it's a debate. The kitchen bustles behind you. Above the chaos, the head housekeeper makes her rounds, her keys jangling like a threat. She doesn't look at you. That's actually good. Attention means inspection. Inspection means punishment. You dip your head lower, pretend to be invisible. Still, amid the soot and clatter, your senses are on overdrive. You smell beef bones simmering. You hear the rustle of skirts and the hiss of steam. Your back aches, your hands sting, and your stomach feels like it's been hollowed out with a melon baller. Welcome to breakfast prep, for other people. As you scrub, your mind drifts. You wonder, did this place ever feel like home to anyone? Did some other poor girl once sit here? Same cold water, same aching bones, dreaming of the life she could have had? Fun fact. Many Victorian maids started at age 11 or 12. You're technically lucky to wake up in this body. You might be 16, maybe even 18, old enough that your family had no choice but to ship you off in search of wages. But young enough that your spine still has a shot at surviving this job. Oh, and the wages? About £6 a year. If you're lucky, that's barely enough to buy shoes, let alone dreams. There's a crash behind you. Someone's dropped a tray of mugs. The housekeeper whirls like a falcon mid-hunt. Someone gets scolded so harshly you almost forget your own misery. Almost. You glance at the hearth, wood needs restacking, and someone forgot to sweep under the table. That someone is probably you. A fringe detail not many realize. Scullery maids weren't just maids. They were machines with skin. You'd wake before the household, sleep well after, and never, ever speak unless spoken to. Even your laughter, if you dared, was expected to be silent. By now, your fingers are pruned, your arms shaking from scrubbing, and your throat dry from the smoky air. The sun hasn't even risen. You're 1 hour into your first day, and you already miss your toothbrush. Spoiler: it doesn't exist. You might get a chew stick if you're lucky. Minty freshness? Try charcoal paste and wishful thinking. Somewhere upstairs, the masters are stirring. Their feet will hit carpets so soft they feel like clouds. You, on the other hand, are about to haul 2 pails of ash out back before refilling the coal bins and… Wait, is that your stomach growling again? Good luck finding breakfast before lunch. And just when you think you might get a breath, cook's voice rings again. You, girl, fire's dead in the parlor. Go now. You drop the sponge. You grab the tinderbox. You do not make eye contact. You don't breathe too loudly. And you definitely don't say the words running through your head. Because unlike the gentry, you can't afford rudeness. You can afford blisters. Though, lucky you, outside, the courtyard is still wet with morning dew and soot from last night's rain. You kneel, stacking coal with frozen fingers. Sparks flying like angry fireflies, and just like that, your Victorian day truly begins. You trudge back inside with fingers stiff from cold and the faint scent of smoke clinging to your sleeves. One hand balances the coal scuttle, the other still damp from the half-scrubbed frying pan you had to abandon. You slip through the kitchen like a ghost, unseen but expected to function. And oh, the kitchen, it's louder now. Hotter too. Cook has stoked the main oven, and the air tastes of yeast, grease, and barely restrained rage. You make it to the parlor hearth without falling, barely, and kneel to relight the fire. The grate is half choked with last night's ashes, and the wood is damp. You strike flint against steel until the spark finally catches, feeling every second of the delay stretch like you're hanging over a pit. The last thing you want is for one of the gentry to come down and find the fire unlit. That earns you points, not the good kind. Think of them more as emotional bruises in a ledger only the housekeeper can see. Once the flames take hold, you shuffle backward, stand, and wipe your hands on your apron, useless gesture. The soot's permanent, as are the mysterious stains on your dress that you don't remember getting. Back in the scullery, the work resumes. The water in the basin is now lukewarm and gray. You think about changing it but then remember there's no running tap. Just the heavy pump outside. And your arms are still rubbery from the last trip. So you keep scrubbing. Victorian kitchens operated like industrial engines. Every pot, plate, pan, and pewter spoon had a designated place and time to be clean. God forbid you mix up the silver with the tin. You once heard of a maid dismissed on the spot for polishing the wrong set of candlesticks. Or maybe that was just a cautionary tale whispered in the dark to keep new girls like you in line. You glance up and see the kitchen maid, just one rung above you, kneading dough with a scowl. She's maybe 16, with arms like ropes and an expression like someone just told her joy was illegal. But she's fast, efficient. She's survived longer than most. That's something. Faster. Cook snaps, this time at no one in particular. Guests arriving at noon. Guests. That means chaos. Double place settings. Extra wine decanters. More trays. More linen. More ways for you to fail. But you're not allowed to think about that right now. You've got bigger problems. Breakfast. Not for you, of course. For the family. You're on egg boiling duty. Which sounds simple, until you realize the eggs have to be timed exactly 6 minutes. Cooled just so, and not one shell cracked. You fumble with the pot. Count seconds in your head. And hope the gentry like their yolks slightly firm today. If not, well, there's always tomorrow's apology. While you wait, your stomach gnaws itself into knots. The smell of toasted bread and fried bacon fills the kitchen like a cruel joke. And no, you're not getting any of it. Your meal? A crust of yesterday's bread. If it wasn't already fed to the dog. One of the footmen saunters in and snatches a sausage from the tray. He's got curls too perfect to be natural and the kind of smugness only someone paid to look decorative could wear. Better not let Cook catch you. You mutter before you can stop yourself. He winks. She likes me. And just like that, he's gone. Historians still argue whether the lower servants' casual flirting was harmless camaraderie or a powder keg of scandal waiting to explode. But to you, it mostly feels like a distraction, and not a helpful one. The eggs are done. You rush them to the warming plate. already mentally preparing for your next task, soot scraping in the drawing room fireplace. Yes, the one with the marble surround that cost more than your family's cottage back home. You'll need to lay cloth on the rugs. Brush carefully with the stiff bristled brush. And pray not to knock over one of the porcelain dogs on the hearth. They're not real dogs, just very ugly ones, glaring ceramic things that somehow cost more than a horse. As you scrub, you sneak a glance out the tall window. The sky is brightening now. But there's no sun, just haze. London fog, thick and sticky, curls past the glass like a living thing. You remember reading somewhere, hearing somewhere, maids weren't encouraged to read, that this fog was called pea soup because it was greenish and choking. Charming. Suddenly the butler appears in the doorway like a summoned ghost. He's tall, immaculately dressed, and looks at you the way one might look at a boot left out in the rain. The missus wants the maid in the west bedroom. You blink. That's you. Apparently. You mutter a, "Yes sir," and drop your rag. Grateful to escape the fireplace but wary of what's coming next. The west bedroom is hers, the lady of the house. Which means lace curtains, perfume that smells like crushed violets and disappointment, and very particular expectations. As you climb the stairs, yes, the back ones, you rehearse your script in your head. Speak only if spoken to. Don't look her in the eyes. Don't say, "Yeah." Don't call anything nice. And for the love of tea, don't track coal dust onto the Persian rug. The west bedroom is airy and freezing. You're not allowed to comment on either. She's standing by the mirror in a dressing robe, waving vaguely toward a table full of hairpins, ribbons, and a hairbrush made of something suspiciously ivory. "Brush," she says. You move behind her and begin to brush. Slow, steady. Her hair is long, pale, and surprisingly heavy. She doesn't speak for a while. When she does, it's in the tone one might use for ordering wallpaper or canceling an afternoon carriage ride. "My sister's coming today. She's very fond of cleanliness." You nod. She has strong opinions about staff hygiene. You stop brushing. "Just for a second. I'll be sure to wash again." "Ma'am," you murmur. This, apparently, is the correct response. She goes quiet again. You finish brushing, curtsy, and back out of the room like a poorly choreographed ballet dancer. The hallway outside smells faintly of lilacs and something less pleasant, probably the gentleman's cologne, which has the staying power of a haunted library. You descend back to the servants' quarters just in time to be handed a mop. The back hallway has a leak. Of course it does. And so your day continues, wet boots, cold lunch, aching knees, and the ever-present fear that someone will notice the crack in the teacup you stacked an hour ago. Still, there's a strange rhythm to it all. Scrub, bow, carry, repeat, and somehow, absurdly, you survive. You haven't sat down in hours. And your knees feel like they belong to a person 3 times your age. Still, you manage not to groan as you carry a tray of clean linen down the narrow passage toward the linen closet, minding every creaky floorboard and bump in the wallpaper. The embroidered sheets you're holding could buy an entire field of turnips back home. Or at least a very nice pair of shoes. But here, they're just more things to iron and fold without leaving so much as a wrinkle. Halfway through your 3rd trip, you hear it. The telltale clink of keys. She's coming. The head housekeeper. You freeze in place. Back straight. Eyes down. The clinking gets louder until you feel her presence. Her tightly laced silhouette looming like a matronly thundercloud in a black bombazine dress. The keys at her waist jangle with every step. A grim music you're quickly learning to fear. "Girl," she says, and you're not sure if she's forgotten your name or just never bothered to learn it. You folded those top towels incorrectly. Again, you swallow. "Yes, ma'am." She plucks one from the tray with the precision of a vulture selecting a rib bone. Her eyebrows rise, barely, and she tuts under her breath. "You're lucky I'm in a generous mood today." Which, judging by her expression, is like saying the North Sea is slightly less frozen than usual. The head housekeeper, as you now know intimately, is the ruling monarch of the servant world. Even the butler answers to her when it comes to order and discipline below stairs. And no one is beyond her scrutiny. She's judge, jury, and occasional executioner of careers. Rumor has it she once reduced a chambermaid to tears with just one look. You believe it. She sweeps off down the hall, and you let out a breath only after her keys fade from earshot. Historians still argue whether housekeepers were powerful women in a male-dominated structure or merely enforcers of patriarchal discipline in crinoline. Either way, when she's around, you stand up straighter and breathe smaller. You deposit the linen with extra care this time, and head straight to your next assignment, polishing the brass banisters on the main staircase. And you better believe you'll be spotted if you miss a single swirl. While kneeling on the cold wood, your mind starts drifting again. Did the girl who held this post before you also polish these rails? Did she get out, or did she just fade into the wallpaper? You glance around. No one's watching. You whisper under your breath, "I'm not becoming wallpaper," and then immediately regret it. Because who knows who, or what, hears things in houses this old. Your next task is more intimate, assisting the lady's maid in tidying the mistress's dressing room. The lady's maid, of course, is at the top of the female servant pyramid, practically royalty compared to you. She gets paid better, dresses better, even eats with the upper servants. Her voice is soft, but her eyes are razor blades. She nods you over with a flick of her wrist. Dust that cabinet. Gently. That's French crystal. You don't know the difference between French and not French crystal. But you nod as if you do. You take the cloth and begin dusting the elaborate perfume bottles and hairbrushes with handles made from real silver, each one reflecting your tired, soot-smudged face back at you like a mocking little portrait. "Careful with that vial," she says. Lady Eleanor favors that scent, violets and ambergris. You blink. Ambergris? Ambergris, she corrects, clearly delighted at your ignorance. It comes from Wales. Your cloth pauses mid-wipe. Wait, like, inside Wales? She gives a mysterious little smirk. Oh yes, the part no one wants to talk about. And with that, she sweeps from the room, leaving you with an entire shelf of sea creature-scented luxury to clean. Fact: ambergris is a rare substance found in the digestive tracts of sperm whales. Once used in expensive Victorian perfumes. A quirky, pungent detail tucked into the elegant folds of high society. By the time you finish dusting, the light is shifting through the windows, soft gold filtering through lace curtains. It would be beautiful if you had the time to enjoy it. But you're late again. The housekeeper will be checking the morning fire grates. And if yours isn't cleaned properly, it's another strike on your invisible record. You dash to the drawing room, hoping your apron isn't too crumpled. It is. You grab the brush and begin sweeping out last night's ashes. It's a delicate operation. Too rough, and you scatter soot onto the rug. Too gentle, and you'll leave a smudge that'll earn you a lecture. You work in careful, practiced circles, thinking of nothing and everything at once. Somewhere nearby, the lady's small dog begins barking, a high-pitched, aristocratic yap. You freeze. The dog, a puffball of fur and attitude named Bixby, hates servants, especially you. You try to ignore him, but he runs into the room, yapping and circling like a wind-up toy. You instinctively reach down to shoo him. Big mistake. Don't touch the dog, comes the screech from the hallway. You leap back like you touched fire. The governess glares at you as if you just kicked the queen. Back to your post, she says sharply. You nod and back away. Cheeks hot, heart pounding. The dog is now smugly chewing the fringe of the chaise longue. Completely unaware he nearly cost you your job. Once again, you return to the kitchen. Cook doesn't even look up. She points at the pile of carrots that need peeling and continues barking at the footman for something he did 2 hours ago. As you peel, you think again of the girl who came before you. You heard snippets in the hall. That she left suddenly. That no one talks about it. That her bed in the scullery wing stayed empty for 3 days before someone else was sent down from upstairs. There are rumors. Always rumors. Did she run off with a chimney sweep? Did the master get her in trouble? Did she just vanish? Historians still debate how often Victorian servants disappeared into cities like London without a trace, quitting, fleeing, or sometimes just ceasing to exist in the records altogether. Most left no diaries, no letters, just impressions in the linen and whispers in the walls. You finish the carrots, wash your hands in freezing water, and as you dry them on your apron, you realize the brass smell is clinging to your fingers, like proof that you're still here, still accounted for. But for how long? You've just sat down for a breath, barely a breath, more like a half sigh, when you hear it, the rattle of the chamber pot trolley. No, your stomach sinks faster than a dropped teacup. Of all the tasks that fill a maid's grim little universe, There's one that reigns supreme in sheer indignity and stench. It's time to empty the toilets. Only, they're not toilets. Not really. They're ceramic bowls with frilly lids and delicate floral patterns. Some so dainty you almost forget what's inside them. Almost. Your job? Collect them. Carry them down 2 flights. Slosh them into the backyard, sluice. Scrub them out. And somehow keep your dignity intact. Spoiler. You won't. You head up the narrow servant stairwell, balancing the rickety trolley and praying the wheels don't catch on a nail again. Every jolt is a potential disaster. You tried to forget last week's incident with the footman. The wobble, the spill, the smell, but your shoes haven't. You start with the nursery. 2 pots. One for the baby. One for the governess, who insists hers always be done first. As if that changes the contents. Then it's the guest bedroom. Then the master's suite. By the time you reach the ladies' chambers, your arms ache and your sense of smell has retreated into some safe, dark corner of your brain. You knock gently. A muffled enter floats through the door, accompanied by the distant scent of rosewater and something you now recognize as whale vomit. Ah, ambergris, your old friend. The lady is at her writing desk, pretending not to notice you. You bow, collect the porcelain pot, and try not to inhale. It's warm. You hate that you noticed. Victorian England wasn't known for its plumbing, and the chamber pot was an unpleasant staple in every household, though. Fun fact. Wealthier homes were just beginning to install indoor water closets. Of course, those innovations rarely trickled down to servant areas. Historians still argue whether early plumbing was a blessing or a health hazard. Most servants would have traded a limb for either option. With your load complete, you descend the stairs at an angle so cautious you'd think you were carrying a sleeping cat made of nitroglycerin. Out back, behind the scullery door, lies the sluice. It's little more than a grimy trough connected to a grimier drain. You tip the contents one by one, covering your mouth with your sleeve. The smell is a creature all its own, crawling into your clothes, your hair, your soul. You can scrub your hands raw and still feel it in your teeth. You rinse, scrub, rinse again. One pot cracks slightly under the boiling water. You curse under your breath, then curse louder when you remember someone might be listening. The chamber pot ritual takes the better part of an hour. By the end, your arms feel like pudding and your nose has gone permanently numb. You stack the pots on the dry rack and head back inside just in time for, of course, a spilled bucket of mop water in the back hallway. The footman swears it wasn't his fault. The kitchen maid says it was. You grab a rag and mop anyway. Because the argument is a luxury you can't afford. Once the mess is handled, you're sent to polish the brass bedposts in the guest suite, again. No one has stayed there in weeks. But dust doesn't care about occupancy. Neither does the housekeeper. You're elbow deep in polish when you notice something odd. The foot of the bed has scratch marks. Not ordinary scuffs, but deep grooves, as if someone had tried to pull it across the floor. Or maybe, something was hidden underneath. You glance at the door. No footsteps. No jangling keys. You kneel and tilt your head under the bed. The light is dim, but you see it, a sliver of paper, wedged into a crack between the floorboards. You reach in and tug it out. A letter. The paper is yellowed, the handwriting sharp and slanted. You scan a few lines before your conscience screams at you to stop. Can't stay here anymore. Something's wrong. He knows I saw the photograph. Tell mother I never meant to. The ink smears off with a faint thumbprint. Blood? Maybe. Or just spilled tea. You don't get to decide which is worse. You quickly fold the note and slip it into your apron pocket. You tell yourself you'll return it later. Or burn it. Or forget it. But you won't. You hear footsteps. Someone's coming. You leap to your feet. Grab your rag. And polish like your life depends on it. Back in the servants' hallway. Things are unraveling. The kitchen is out of butter. The upstairs window won't close. One of the guests, Lord something or other, has arrived early and decided to stretch his legs through the lower halls. He nearly bumps into the under housemaid and complains about the stench of fish and coal. You're the fish, by the way. Or maybe the coal. The under housemaid rushes past you. Pale and flustered. You barely catch her whisper. Did you see his boots? Mud all the way to the calf. You blink. So? It's London. No, she hisses. Country mud. Your skin prickles. Guests don't usually arrive from the country unannounced. Not unless something's wrong or something's hiding. Historians still argue about the role of gossip in servant culture. Some say it was resistance. Others say it was just survival. But here, now, it feels like both. You file the mud detail away next to the letter. Then, just to be safe, you hide the letter under the floor tile near your cot. You're not sure why, just in case. Before you can process anything, the kitchen bell rings again, 3 short clangs. You've been summoned. Again, you enter to find Cook glaring at the butter dish like it personally insulted her. Fetch more from the cellar. She snaps. And mind the rats. You nod and grab the lantern. The cellar door creaks open like the entrance to a haunted novel. The stairs are steep, stone, and cold under your feet. You descend slowly, the light flickering across barrels and hooks and long-forgotten crates. The butter is in the back. Of course it is. You grab it, turn around, and hear something shuffle. You freeze. It could be a rat. Probably is a rat, or maybe the ghost of the last maid who left suddenly. You laugh softly under your breath. You gone full Victorian, talking to ghosts. Maybe tomorrow you'll start writing bad poetry and fainting at thunder. You return to the kitchen. Butter delivered, fear pocketed, letter hidden, and still, your day isn't done. By late morning, the house begins to stir in earnest. And with it, your chances of staying invisible plummet. You're dispatched upstairs with a tray, silver, polished, heavy, bearing tea for the mistress and her visiting sister. The cups rattle with every step. And your fingers are still red from the cellar's chill. One false move and that fine-boned china becomes a crime scene. Worse, a firing scene. At the drawing room door. You knock once and wait. Enter. You step in. The room is pure Victorian drama. Velvet drapes so thick they muffle sound. Wallpaper like faded theater curtains. And a fireplace trimmed in ivory tile. You keep your eyes low. Tray balanced. And glide forward as carefully as if walking a tightrope strung over a pit of judgment and crushed lace. The mistress barely glances up. Her sister, however, stares hard. New girl? She asks. The way one might inquire if the fish smells off. Yes, ma'am, you murmur, setting the tray down with agonizing precision. The sister says. Small wrists, good for polishing. You smile, but not really. You retreat like a shadow, silent, efficient, ignored, back down the servant stairs. Heartbeat returning to its rightful speed. Until you realize. The tray's napkin had a grease mark. You're not sure if they noticed. But you did. Back downstairs. There's no time to wallow in tea service shame. The afternoon dusting rounds are underway. You're assigned the front parlor. A fancy term for room no one uses except when the vicar comes calling or a child plays piano badly at Christmas. As you dust the mantelpiece, carefully skirting the ceramic shepherdess with the oddly smug expression, you hear movement behind the wall. Not loud, not obvious, just a creak, a footstep. You freeze. The servants' corridor runs just beyond this wall, but no one scheduled to pass here now. You lean slightly toward the sound. Nothing. Back to work. The shepherdess gives you side-eye as you dust her again. You don't like her. You finish the room just as the actual piano lesson begins 2 doors down. The little boy of the house, who shrieks every note like he's trying to summon spirits, is practicing scales, loudly, badly. Your ears try to leave your body. No luck. Victorian children were often taught music not for pleasure, but for social standing. A well-placed Mozart piece at the piano meant your daughter was marriageable. A shrieking young heir? Less charming. You wonder if even the piano is tired of him. You slip out into the hallway and back into the servants' realm, where everything smells like boiled cabbage and stress. It's lunchtime for the family, which means chaos for the kitchen. Roasted pigeon, minted peas, and a sauce with a name no one dares mispronounce must be plated, warmed, and carried upstairs while still steaming. You're on sauce duty. You ladle it into a silver boat, the handle hot enough to brand a small animal. And carefully, so carefully, follow the kitchen maid to the butler's station. You don't ascend the main stairs. That's not for you. You use the back passage, which is steep, narrow, and haunted by at least 6 tripping hazards. But you reach the landing, hand off the sauce, and exhale. One day, you think, you'll carry something of your own through these halls. A letter, a dream, a voice. But not today. Today you carry silence. You slip into the shadow of the staircase and pause. Just for a moment. That's when you hear it. Laughter. Not the households. Not the gentry. This laughter is lower, whispered, coming from behind a half-closed guest room door. You know better. You do. But your feet move anyway. You step close and peer through the crack. 2 servants. The second footman, him again. With the perfect hair, and the lady's maid. Her hand brushes his lapel. He leans close. They laugh softly. Their faces just a few inches apart. You back away. Victorian households forbade improper fraternizing between staff. It could mean instant dismissal, or worse, if the wrong person saw. Historians still debate whether these rules were moral codes or just tools of control. Probably both. Either way, you now carry a secret. And secrets in this house are as flammable as lamp oil. You rush back to the scullery, where the midday dishes are already towering like a ceramic city. The kitchen maid looks up, notices your red cheeks, and raises an eyebrow. You say nothing. Instead, you grab a rag and start scrubbing. Soap stings the cuts on your fingers. And your mind wanders to the letter under your floor tile, to the scratch marks on the floor, to the muddy boots of the country visitor who still hasn't left, to the way the lady's maid looked at that footman like she owned him. You're elbow deep in greasy water when the bell rings again. 3 short clangs. The drawing room. Again, you dry your hands and head upstairs, expecting another tea order. Instead, you're greeted by a tray of scattered cards, tarot cards. You realize, though half the images are too faded to make out. Hold this, the mistress says, thrusting a crystal toward you. You blink. Ma'am? She doesn't answer. She's consulting the cards, muttering something about the tower and a sudden change. Then she laughs. Ah well, nothing to worry about, I'm sure. She plucks the crystal from your hand, sets it down, and waves you away. Victorian spiritualism was a real fad. Seances, ghost photography, even spirit writing. Many upper-class women were obsessed with the occult, not out of fear, but for control. When your world is full of rules, speaking to the dead feels like a shortcut. Back in your room, finally, you find your tiny comb. Try to pull your hair into something less chaotic, and wipe your face with the corner of a rag. Your cot sags. The floorboards groan. Somewhere down the hall, a girl coughs. You glance at the loose floor tile, knowing the letter is still there, still waiting. Outside, the light is fading, the fog creeping back in, and dinner panic is just around the corner. Dinner in the Victorian household isn't just a meal, it's a pageant of class, decorum, and organized panic. For you, it starts not with food, but with laundry. Yes, laundry. Specifically, the starched white napkins, the freshly pressed uniforms, the linen tablecloth that must lie on the table like a single sheet of calm. And guess whose job it is to make sure it's all spotless? Yours. Down in the laundry room, you're met with a cloud of steam and the unmistakable scent of boiled fabric. The laundress, a wiry woman with arms like fence posts, hands you a basin and a brush. The collar's got blood again, she mutters. Lady's maid keeps stabbing her own thumbs. Victorian laundry isn't like tossing clothes into a nice humming machine while sipping tea. It's an ordeal. Each piece must be soaked, scrubbed, boiled, beaten, wrung, rinsed, blued, starched, and finally ironed with metal blocks heated over open flames. And those irons easily weigh 6 pounds. You lift one and feel your spine weep. You start with the napkins. One by one, you scrub them on a wooden board, careful not to tear the edges. The starch stiffens them into obedient rectangles, but your fingers are already peeling. The boiling water sloshes, splashes your wrist, and you wince. The laundress doesn't look up. Better scalded than sloppy, she says. There's a rhythm to it. Oddly meditative. The sounds blur, bristles on linen. Water hissing. Someone upstairs dragging a chair. The monotony has its own kind of peace. And yet, you can't stop wondering, who irons the lives of those upstairs? Who smooths their wrinkles, scrubs their secrets? One napkin is embroidered, a tiny stitched name, Annalise. Not anyone from this house. You pause. The laundress notices. Don't ask, she says, eyes narrowing. Some things stay scrubbed away. You file that with the shepherdess. The letter, and the weird creaking. Next, uniforms. You're handed a pile of under petticoats and 2 maid aprons that need to be bleached. The bleaching powder burns your throat. Outside, The line is already hung with linens fluttering in the foggy breeze like pale ghosts. Historians argue whether these enormous laundry days happened weekly or fortnightly. Frankly, you hope it's never again. But most agree that laundry defined a maid's skill and status. Bad ironing? Dismissal. Burn a hole? Firing. Use too much starch? Public shaming. You stretch your back, fingers trembling, and then the bell rings. Dinner prep. Now, you dash upstairs. The kitchen has transformed into culinary war zone. Cook is at the center of it all, shouting orders with the authority of a general. Her hair is escaping its pins. Her apron is smeared with something brown and unidentifiable. She points a spoon at you. Gravy boat. Dining room. Don't spill it this time. You don't ask what happened last time. You don't want to know. Balancing the boat like a sacred relic. You enter the butler's station. The family hasn't come down yet. But the silver is set. Knives arranged with terrifying symmetry. Wine glasses so thin they feel like sugar. You notice a fork out of place. You fix it. The butler gives you a rare nod of approval. You glow slightly inside. Dinner begins. The household files in. The master. The mistress. Their sulking teenage son. And a cousin visiting from Bath who clearly thinks everyone smells wrong. Conversation buzzes faintly from behind closed doors as you, the footman, and the kitchen maid perform a silent ballet of dishes, trays, and signals. You try not to breathe too loudly. Or look directly at anyone. As you pass behind the cousin, he shifts suddenly, his elbow catches your tray. Clatter. A spoon hits the floor. The butler glares. Your breath stops. The cousin doesn't even turn. The master says, "Careful, girl." You mumble an apology, retrieve the spoon, and keep going. In the kitchen, the second footman snorts. "Close one," he says. You resist the urge to throw a boiled potato at him. After dinner, the rush continues, clearing, sorting, scraping, and washing. Your elbow deep in leftovers and gravy crusts. The scent of pigeon permanently lodged in your nose. As you dump a bucket of bones, you spot a rat in the corner. He looks at you. You look at him. Neither of you blink. Then he scurries into a hole behind the coal bin. You wonder if he's freer than you are. By now, it's past 8. Your arms ache. Your eyes burn. And they're still ironing. Yes, more. The second batch of laundry has dried. Now, under the flicker of a single gas lamp, you press collars and cuffs with a hot iron, breathing in the scorched scent of linen and old starch. Someone hums a tune behind you. It's the housemaid, young, freckled, barely older than 13. She doesn't speak, just hums. You join her, softly, a rare moment of calm. She smiles, then whispers, "Don't let cook catch you smiling. She'll make you mop the coal chute." You both snort, quietly. You finish the ironing, stack the collars, fold the aprons, and as you turn to leave, something catches your eye, a note tucked under a blouse. Neatly folded. You unfold it. "Meet me at the South Well. Midnight. A." Your heart skips. Who's A? You hide the note in your apron. Outside the laundry window, fog curls along the cobblestones. A cart rattles by, pulled by a horse too tired to care. The lamps flicker. A door creaks somewhere upstairs. You are still a maid. Still scrubbing. Still folding. Still invisible. But now, you're also part of something. The laundry is done, but the night is just beginning. You barely have time to change aprons before being swept into the servants' hall, the beating heart of below-stairs life and, occasionally, your only refuge. It's not grand. No chandeliers or carved cornices here. Just long wooden benches, plain plaster walls, and the smell of turnip stew trying to be dinner. A fireplace flickers lazily at the far end, doing little to warm the damp that clings to your spine. But in its own way, this place is sacred. Here, for a blessed half hour, you're allowed to sit, to exhale, to exist as something closer to human than furniture. You collapse onto a bench. Across from you, the second housemaid is already halfway through a hunk of bread the size of her head. Next to her, the bootboy is chewing with the desperation of someone who skipped lunch and breakfast. You're handed a bowl of thin stew. It's mostly broth, with one heroic carrot slice floating like a life raft. You sip slowly, careful not to burn your tongue. The room is alive with murmurs and half-laughs. Someone's telling a story about the lady of the house tripping over her own dog. Cooks laugh booms from the next table. The footmen are making bets on whether the visiting cousin wears a wig. You don't speak yet. You just listen. This This is where everything unravels. Gossip is currency. And you? You're finally starting to earn a few shillings. The scullery maid leans in. Did you see the cousin's boots? Mud right to the ankle. Walked straight through the parlor like it was a stable. You nod. You'd noticed that. Reckon he's got secrets. She adds. Wrote a letter this morning. Didn't use the family seal. Interesting. The second footman picks up the thread. I saw him sneaking into the library after hours. Probably looking for a book to eat. Someone mutters. Quiet laughter ripples. Then the housemaid, the young freckled one who hummed earlier, says, maybe he's looking for her. Everyone goes quiet. You glance up. She's staring at her stew. Suddenly interested in her spoon. Who? You ask. She shrugs. No one. Just a ghost story. A pause. And then the bootboy, in a voice much too serious for someone whose voice still cracks, says, like the maid who disappeared. You wait. The one who was here before you. He says, Annalise. That name. You remember it. Embroidered into a napkin during laundry. The room gets quieter, like everyone's leaning in while pretending not to. She vanished. He says, didn't say goodbye. Left all her things. Someone else adds, didn't collect her wages. Not even her shoes. The housemaid shifts in her seat. Historians still argue whether she ran off with a stable boy or, she drops her voice to a whisper, was taken. Taken where? You ask. South wing. Another voice. Don't be daft. It's just locked for repairs. You're about to ask more, when the butler's voice slices through the room. Enough noise. This isn't a music hall. Silence. Chairs scoot. Bowls are scraped clean. One by one, the servants drift back to their tasks. You linger. There's a tray that needs carrying upstairs. But for once, you let someone else take it. You sit by the fire. Now low and orange and sleepy. You pull the mysterious note from your pocket again. Meet me at the south well. Midnight. There are a dozen reasons not to go. You're dead tired. You could get caught. It might be a trick. But, you tuck the note away. You have 3 hours. Just enough time to deliver the night candles. You collect the tray from the butler's station. A row of oil lamps. All trimmed and filled. Their soft flames wobbling like tiny dancers. You walk carefully. These lamps will shatter if you drop them. And shattering means scolding. First stop. The upstairs hallway. It stretches like a river of red carpet and silence. You place lamps on sconces. Your reflection flickering in the polished mirrors. Somewhere, a clock ticks like a heartbeat. Next, the nursery. You pause at the door. Something about it always makes you nervous. Maybe it's the rocking horse that creaks on its own. Maybe it's the portrait of a child who doesn't live here anymore. You open the door. The nanny nods at you. She's knitting. The child, little Eloise, is already asleep, clutching a faded doll missing an eye. Her curls are a tangle across her pillow. Cheeks flushed with dreams. You set the lamp on the table and move to leave when, thump. You freeze. The nanny doesn't react. She's still knitting. Did you hear that? You whisper. Hear what? She asks. Still focused on her needles. You pause. Shake your head. Nothing. Must be the pipes. You finish your rounds. Back downstairs. The servants' quarters are quieter now. Someone snoring behind a door. A clock chimes 11. You lie down in your tiny cot. But you don't undress. You stare at the ceiling. Wait. Listen. Then, quietly, you rise. Past the pantry. Past the scullery. Through the back door and out into the damp night. Fog clings to your skirts. Your shoes squelch on the mossy stone path. The cold is sharp. Alive. The moon glows just enough to guide your steps. There it is. The south well. An old stone circle. Half choked by ivy. A rusted bucket leans against it. Handle snapped. Water glimmers faintly below. You wait. And then, footsteps. Slow. Soft. A figure steps into the moonlight. Tall. Cloaked. A gloved hand lifts to remove their hood. But before they speak, a door slams somewhere in the distance. You both freeze. The figure backs into the shadows. Whispers just 2 words. Tomorrow. Same time. Then they're gone. You stand by the well. Breath clouding the night air. The chill cuts deeper than the cold. And somewhere, from inside the house, a baby starts crying. The next morning hits like a slap from a wet dish rag. You don't even remember crawling back into bed. But the bell is already clanging and the house is awake again. Rising like a great beast. All clatter and clanging and calls for tea. Your feet feel like stone. Your arms ache from yesterday's endless parade of trays and chamber pots. But there's no time to feel sorry for yourself, not with the dinner bell panic looming. You scramble into your cleanest apron. It's not clean, of course. Just the least stained. You grab your cap, twist your hair into something resembling tidy, and dash for the kitchen. The cook is already screaming. Where is the silver ladle? If I have to serve turtle soup with a wooden spoon, I swear I will throw someone into the tureen. You duck, narrowly avoiding a flying potato. The footmen are hauling crates of vegetables. The housemaids are setting up tables for polishing. You get the job no one wants. Dinner bell prep. That means folding napkins into complicated origami fans, stacking fine china plates that are older than your great-grandmother, and polishing exactly 28 pieces of silver cutlery per place setting. You lose track of time. Your hands cramp. Your back screams. Someone drops a spoon and the cook hisses like a snake. Then, the butler appears. He doesn't speak, just gives you that look, the one that means you're behind. So you run, up the stairs, down the hall, into the great dining room, which is all velvet and chandelier and that ridiculous painting of Lord something-something staring heroically into a bush. The long mahogany table waits like a dragon, ready to devour your effort. You begin to set. Plate. Smaller plate. Even smaller plate. Fork, fork, fork. Knife. Spoon. Mystery utensil you still don't understand. Napkin. Goblet. Water glass. Wine glass. Repeat. And repeat. You're halfway done when the lady of the house floats in, trailing perfume and disdain. She doesn't look at you. Just says, "Is this wrinkle?" Your heart skips. She's holding a napkin, with a crease. You open your mouth to apologize. But she's already gone, mumbling something about standards. Historians still argue whether the Victorian obsession with appearance was pride, propriety, or just a really creative form of collective suffering. You crumple inside, but smile. You fix the napkin. You finish the place settings. And then it starts. The gong. It's not a bell. Not really. It's this horrible brass disc the size of a small moon that gets hammered exactly 15 minutes before dinner. That's when everything goes berserk. The scullery maid starts sprinting tureens to the butler's pantry. The cook is barking out courses like a general. The footmen are adjusting their cravats for the 5th time and checking their sideburns in any reflective surface they can find. And you carry soup. Very carefully. The tureen is heavy. The ladle is hot. And no, if one drop lands on the pristine white tablecloth, you'll be scrubbing chamber pots for a week. You walk the hallway like it's a tightrope. You reach the dining room. Inside, the family is seated. 12 people, each more bejeweled than the last. Even the dog has a ribbon. You keep your head down. You pour soup. 1 bowl. 2. 3. Careful with the ladle. No splash. No dribble. By the 5th guest, your arm is trembling. The tureen feels like it's full of bricks. By the 7th, a bead of sweat rolls down your nose and nearly plops right into someone's consommé. You sniff it back just in time. You finish the round. Retreat. Breathe. Then start again, for the fish course. Then the roast. Then the pudding. Then the cheese. Dinner takes 3 hours. You stand in the butler's pantry most of that time, holding your breath and trying not to sneeze. The fumes from the roasting meats, the whiffs of perfume, and the heat from 10 flaming dishes blend into something that feels a little like delirium. Once, a footman drops a tray. No one says anything, but everyone hears. The butler's jaw clenches. The tray is gone by the time the next course arrives. It's like a battlefield, but with less mud and more soufflé. And finally, the family rises. The ladies float toward the drawing room. The men stumble after, wine in hand. You're left with carnage. Dirty plates, greasy linen, forks tangled in cheese rinds. You begin to clear. And here's the kicker. Nothing can make noise. Not a clatter, not a scrape. You learn to lift and balance and float like a tray-carrying ghost. Every plate you carry feels heavier than the last. Your knees threaten mutiny. Your shoes, bless them, now contain more gravy than leather. But somehow, it ends. You descend to the kitchen like a soldier returning from the front. You expect collapse. Instead, you're roped into helping polish the silver. Again, because dinner resets for tomorrow. And every fork must shine like the sun. The cook finally hands you a sliver of cake. It's stale, but sugary, and you nibble it like it's a reward. You sit briefly in the corner of the scullery. The noise now reduced to yawns and sighs and the soft scrape of brushes on pewter. You reach into your pocket. The second note is there, folded carefully. This time, it says, Library, 1 o'clock, different time, different place, same scrawled handwriting. You wonder if they know about Annalise, about the South Wing, about you. Your shift isn't over. You still have to clean the candlesticks and sweep the back stairs. But part of your mind is already counting down. The rest of you? Just trying not to fall asleep standing up. You're not sure how your eyes ever closed. Just that they must have. Because when they snap open again, it's dark. Not, turn off the lights, dark. This is ink in your eyes. Breath and fog. London in midwinter kind of dark. And it's cold. The hearth has gone out. Your fingers are stiff, curled like roots. Every joint feels rusted. Every muscle still humming from dinner service. You sit up too fast and nearly knock your head on the low wooden beam above your cot. But there's no time to wallow. You're on night duty now. This part wasn't on the job flyer. Mostly because the job flyer doesn't exist. You slip out of bed, feet searching for shoes in the dark. You wrap your shawl tight around your shoulders, it's barely thicker than a napkin. But it's something, and head out into the corridor. Most of the house sleeps. Even the mice have gone silent. The only light is from your stubby candle, the flame trembling like it knows what's coming. Night duty is when things get weird. You're to check the fires, stoke the dying embers, relight what's gone cold, empty chamber pots again, oh yes. They refill like clockwork, and keep watch, because there's nothing the Victorians feared more than drafty windows, creaking pipes, and improperly lit staircases. Well, maybe women reading novels, but that's a close second. So you begin. First stop, the drawing room. It's cavernous at night, furniture hulking in the gloom like crouching beasts. You nearly trip over a footstool. The fireplace is low. You stoke it with the iron rod, coaxing flames back to life. The heat licks at your knuckles. A brief reward before you're off to the next room. And the next. And wait, did something move? You pause in the hallway. The candle flickers. Down at the end of the corridor, where the nursery sits, you swear you saw. No, you're just tired. Probably. The nursery is last on your route. It's tucked away near the servants' stair. Oddly isolated. The rich think it's charming to keep children just far enough away to pretend parenting isn't necessary. You creep inside. There are 2 tiny beds. 2 sleeping forms under quilts stitched with birds and bunnies. The room smells of lavender and something else. Not bad, just old. You check the window, closed tight. The fireplace, low, but fine. Then you hear it. Tap, tap, tap. Not a knock. Not quite. It's coming from the wardrobe. You freeze. You stare. Victorian wardrobes are enormous. Monstrous. Easily big enough to hold a person, or 3. You think of all the ghost stories you heard in the servants' hall. The girl who vanished in her nightdress. The maid who was found sleepwalking in the pantry with black soot on her hands. The boy who saw someone else brushing the children's hair. Your hand trembles as you step forward. Tap. Your fingers reach for the handle. Boo. You nearly scream. A small face grins up at you from behind the bed curtain. It's the younger child, eyes twinkling, clearly thrilled at your near panic attack. You don't scream, but you do drop your candle. Miraculously, it doesn't go out. It just rolls under the bed and smolders ominously. You retrieve it, set it back upright, and exhale a wordless prayer. The child giggles and flops back into bed. You tuck the covers around her again, whispering, "You'll be the death of me, little rat." She beams. The wardrobe, of course, is empty. No ghosts. Not tonight. Anyway, you finish your rounds. Return to the servants' hall. Most everyone's already asleep. One of the footmen is snoring on a bench. The undercook has curled up with a mop. You perch on the edge of a chair, eyelids sagging, mind still full of tapping wardrobes and candle flames. Then you remember. The note. Library. 1 o'clock. It's 12:57. You tiptoe. The library is on the 2nd floor, rare territory for a maid. It's strictly above stairs, and trespassing could mean instant dismissal. Or worse, being sent to live with Aunt Judith in Norfolk. She collects dead birds. You slip through the side corridor. No one sees you. The door creaks open like a haunted house. The library smells of dust. Pipe smoke. And knowledge. Books tower in every direction. Some older than the wallpaper. You scan the room. No one. Then you hear it, behind a shelf. A whisper. You step closer. There's a hand. A face. A figure in a pageboy cap. It's the hallboy, Thomas. He looks both delighted and terrified to see you. You got the note, he says. You nod. He leans in. Did you know someone used to hide love letters in the dumbwaiter shaft? You blink. No. He grins. Neither did I until I found one yesterday. Signed, A. The same initial that was on the letter I gave you. You whisper. Who's A? He shrugs. That's the mystery, isn't it? Historians still argue whether servants' lives were truly as invisible as they seemed. Or if whole worlds of love, ambition, and rebellion bloomed behind the seams of those aprons. You and Thomas talk in hushed voices. He tells you about Annalise, the maid who vanished a year ago. Rumor said she stole a brooch. Others said she ran off with the second footman. But Thomas thinks she was sent away, for knowing something. What kind of something? You whisper. He shakes his head. I think, you might find out. A clock chimes. 2 a.m. You're late. Again. You both scatter like shadows. You sprint back to your cot. Heart pounding. For a moment, you think, what if you just left? Right now? Walked out into the cold, foggy dark? But no. There's something happening here. And like it or not, you're now a part of it. You sleep through the rooster. It doesn't crow, it gurgles like someone stepping on a harmonica. Either way, you miss it, which means you wake up to the bell. Not the polite ding of a service bell, but the monstrous clanging that signals every servant within hearing distance that something has already gone terribly wrong. You jolt upright, heart sprinting ahead of your body. Your bonnet is half off. Your apron's gone, and your breath smells like last night's panic. Somehow, though, your feet hit the floor before your brain is even online. It's Sunday, which, fun fact, is not your day off. In the Victorian servant universe, Sunday isn't for lounging or waffles or watching Downton Abbey reruns ironically. It's for scrubbing, starching, and repenting, often in that exact order. You rush to the servants' hall. The cook is already storming about like a military general who's lost her ladle. Shoes, pew polish, where's the boiled starch? The list is endless. Your first task? Polish the family's boots. All of them, including the muddy monstrosities of Mr. Wellingford, who apparently walked straight through a bog to reach church last week. You set up in the boot room, which smells like old leather and quiet suffering. Blacking paste, stiff brushes, rag cloths. One by one, the shoes are transformed from crusty horror shows into glossy, respectable footwear, like Cinderella, if her fairy godmother had a thing for waxy chemicals and permanent back pain. As you work, a thought creeps in. These boots go to places you'll never see. The upstairs ladies visit museums, tea gardens, even seaside resorts when they're feeling wild. You, meanwhile, get to inhale shoe polish and whisper at spiders. A fringe detail. Some maids reportedly got arsenic poisoning from overexposure to certain polishes. Because nothing says elegance like shiny shoes that also murder your liver. Once you finish, you're tasked with polishing the family pew. Yes, you heard that right. The Wellingfords own an actual pew at church. Their name carved into the oak like it's a bench-shaped throne. You're to scrub it until it gleams like a holy mirror. Then vanish before service begins, because heaven forbid the congregation see who makes all that sanctified sparkle. Church itself is strange. You don't attend with the family. You're expected to go later, with the other, lower, staff. And you're told very sternly not to sit too close to the altar. Or sing too loud. Or sneeze. Ever. Victorian religion, at least in polite society, is about being seen doing the right thing, preferably while wearing tulle and lace. And definitely without visible pores. As you walk to the staff service, you pass the family carriage returning. Miss Eloise peers out at you with eyes like polished marbles. She's probably no older than you, but she looks utterly alien. A porcelain doll in lace gloves. She doesn't wave, but the youngest child, the one who spooked you last night, sticks her tongue out at you and grins. So maybe there's hope. Inside the chapel, the pews are cold. The air is perfumed with candle wax and piety. You sit with the other maids. Your back straight, your hands folded, and try not to drift off. The vicar drones on about temptation and moral purity. conveniently ignoring the social pyramid that's got half the room working 15-hour days and the other half praying from silk cushions. Historians still argue whether Victorian religion helped stabilize a deeply unequal society, or simply coated injustice in incense and guilt. Your mind wanders. To Thomas. To the diary you still haven't opened. To the key. To Annalise. You shake the thoughts away. This is sacred time. You're here to rest your soul, even if your body's falling apart like a crumbling chimney. After the service, you're given exactly 1 hour of rest, which sounds generous until you realize rest means mending, darning, or ironing your one good cap to Victorian military standards. You choose the cap, safer than stabbing yourself with a needle by accident, again. In the tiny laundry space, you iron in rhythm with the ticking clock. The hot iron is heavy, the linen crisp. You accidentally sing under your breath, just a little. Swing low, sweet chariot. The older laundry maid hears you. You sing like someone who's seen the inside of a coal bin. She says, "Is that bad?" She shrugs. "Not if you've also seen the way out." You're not sure what that means, but it feels like something you'll remember. That evening, you return to the hall. There's a strange hush in the air, like everyone's waiting for something to happen, or maybe something already has. You see the head housekeeper whispering to the butler. Their faces are tight, puzzled. Something's gone missing. Someone whispers behind you. Your breath catches. The letter? The key? But no, this time it's a silver brooch. Gone from Lady Wellingford's dressing table. Just like the one Annalise supposedly stole. History repeats itself in strange patterns. The air in the house becomes electric. Accusations don't fly, they slither. Murmured behind doors and folded napkins. You go to bed early. Not because you're tired, though you are, but because you feel it. A shift. The story is curling in on itself. The clock is ticking louder. The key in your pocket suddenly feels heavier than before. You lie awake, staring at the ceiling. Outside, London breathes in fog and flickering lamplight. And you wonder, if something else goes missing, will they come for you next? The visitor arrives unannounced, which is, of course, a grave scandal. Not that you, lowly scullery maid, are meant to know that. But gossip moves faster than coal dust in this house. And by midday, it's made the rounds. You're scrubbing carrots when Thomas leans in with wide eyes and a grin that says he's either deeply amused or extremely afraid. There's a gentleman in the drawing room. He whispers. Didn't even take his boots off. Mud on the rugs. Didn't wait to be announced. You'd think he owns the place. He doesn't, but he walks like he might. You catch a glimpse an hour later, while delivering tea up the back stairs. There he is, tall, coat still buttoned, the sharp smell of wet wool and pipe smoke trailing behind him. He has that posture, that clipped tone, that unsettling stillness, like a hawk who already knows the mouse is hiding under the table. Lady Wellingford's voice is soft and brittle behind the door. You didn't say you'd come, Mr. Aldwych, and if I had, would you have locked the gates? You scurry on, pretending not to listen, but you very much do. Later, down in the servants' hall, theories erupt like chimney soot. Inspector, old suitor, brother no one knew existed, debt collector, the most plausible one? A government man, royal agent, maybe, investigating a theft, or a disappearance. Because, of course, he's asking about Annalise. You hear it secondhand, from the footman who delivered the brandy decanter. The visitor asked, casually, whether the previous girl ever wrote letters. Whether she had friends in odd places. Whether she ever mentioned something about France. France? That seems odd. Why would a maid in a London townhouse need to talk about France? Unless there's a rustle in your apron pocket. The letter, still folded, still unopened, the paper soft from your constant fingering of its corners. You shouldn't read it. It's not yours. But curiosity is a louder voice than guilt. That night, when the halls are quiet and the clocks all tick like nervous hearts, you slip behind the laundry door with the candle stub and the letter. You read, if you get this, it means I didn't make it to the boat. Tell Marie the clock still ticks and I hid it where we used to hide the jam spoons. Don't trust the man with the ink ring. And if they ask, I never knew the cipher. Okay, you read it again. Still makes no sense. But maybe it's not for you to understand. A clock, a cipher, a jam spoon, a ring? Who is Marie? A shiver prickles your spine. Annalise wasn't just a maid. Or if she was also something else. And now you're holding her secrets. Quirky tidbit. Did you know that some real Victorian maids were recruited into early espionage networks? Especially those stationed in embassies or aristocratic homes with diplomatic connections. They were invisible, unnoticed, perfect for listening at doors and slipping notes between folded linens. You're still staring at the letter when you hear footsteps. Panicked, you blow out the candle and stuff the paper back into your apron. Your heart thuds so hard it nearly gives you away. It's Mr. Aldwych. You don't see him, but you hear him in the hall. His voice is low, calm, and, strangely, closer to the servant corridor than he has any business being. Just passing through, he tells the butler, who grunts with suspicion, "Got turned around. Big house." Then silence. You return to bed, sleep light and fitful. You dream of ticking clocks and ciphers made of lace. The next morning, the visitor is gone, vanished like he was never there. No card left, no goodbye. But something is missing. Again, not a brooch this time. A clock, a small, ornate one from the drawing room. Gone. And that's when your memory lurches. The clock still ticks. So maybe Annalise wasn't hiding a timepiece. Maybe she was hiding something inside one. Historians still argue whether Victorian homes were truly the bastions of order and propriety they pretended to be. Or whether the era's obsession with secrecy, the hidden compartments, the locked diaries, the veiled letters, was a sign of how much chaos brewed beneath the lace. You believe the latter. Because now, the air in the house has changed again. There's suspicion on every face. The staff are watched. The family is tense. And you, sweet little you, are carrying a letter you don't understand. From a girl who may be dead, to a contact who may be French, involving a cipher no one should mention. And now a mysterious man with muddy boots also knows something's amiss. You make a choice. You memorize the letter, word for word, every loop of every ink stroke. Then you burn it in the kitchen hearth. The ashes curl like moths and vanish into the soot-black sky. Now it lives only in your mind. And you're officially in too deep. You can't stop thinking about the diary. The letter's burned now. True, but your curiosity didn't go with it. It's grown, if anything, the way damp grows in your bones during winter scrubbing season. Quiet, steady, inevitable. The problem is, you know the house too well now. And not in the comforting, "Oh, I'll just pop upstairs for the soap" way. It's more like, the wallpaper patterns have started whispering things. The corridors creak in a rhythm you understand too intimately. You're becoming the furniture. Always present, always ignored. And then you remember the nursery closet. Not the one with the dolls and tea sets. The other one. The one that's always locked. But with a keyhole shaped like a lion yawning. The one Annalise once stared at for a beat too long when she thought no one noticed. You were both fetching sheets. She had paused, fingertips grazing the brass handle like it had told her a secret. That night, after everyone's gone to bed, you take a bold step. You steal the ring of spare keys from the pantry wall. Yes, that pantry wall, the one the cook guards like her own child. It takes 3 tries and a dropped jar of pickles to get them without being caught. Key after key, you kneel by the lion's mouth, trying each one as the silence thickens around you like stew. Click. You open the door. There's dust. So much dust you nearly sneeze loud enough to wake the house. And shelves. Cracked. Neglected. Stacked with forgotten things. Tarnished candlesticks. A single doll shoe. Old ledger books dated 1829. And then you find it. A velvet bundle. Thin. Flat. A diary. Bound in green leather. Clasp rusted. No initials. No title. You take it. Slip it inside your apron like it's a stolen jewel. You don't dare read it until later. When you're hiding beneath the kitchen table while others polish silver upstairs. You turn to the first page. August 12, 1848. They said not to write it down. But I'm going mad with it. So I'll write. And I'll hide. And if they find it, let them know I warned them. Well, that's a vibe. What follows is messy. The handwriting loops like it's been written in the dark. Sometimes slants sideways. There are missing words. Scribbled out names. But the gist? Annalise wasn't the first. She writes of someone before her, Magda, another maid who also disappeared. Only not ran off. As Lady Wellingford had once told you with her mouth full of biscuits. No, this Magda had been in love with a footman. One who, according to the diary, Knew the cipher. 2. You think of the phrase in the letter. I never knew the cipher. Annalise had been repeating Magda's words. The diary's last entry stops mid-sentence. There's someone in the dumbwaiter. I heard the rope move. And I. That's it. No ending. Just silence. The dumbwaiter? It's barely used now. Most servants are too large to fit. But suddenly, you remember that cold draft that always creeps into the scullery. The one you blamed on bad brickwork. You check the shaft the next night. Candle in hand. There's a mark scratched inside the wood. A small, strange symbol, 3 interlocking circles. Beneath it, the word, cipher, carved with shaking care. Quirky tidbit. In Victorian times, it wasn't uncommon for hidden messages or initials to be carved into places like dumbwaiters, under floorboards, or even the inner panels of wardrobe doors. Some homes, especially old estates, were practically graffitied with ghost stories in shorthand. You press your fingers to the carving, unsure why. No answers come, just questions. You close the shaft, tuck the diary back into your apron, and sit for a moment, utterly still. Historians still argue whether the servant disappearances, noted in Victorian police ledgers, were simple runaway cases, or something more sinister. Homes like these were closed systems. What happened behind their doors could stay buried for decades. Missing persons didn't always warrant headlines, especially not if they wore aprons. You know this now too well. You go about your duties. You empty chamber pots. You iron collars. You say, yes ma'am, and, very good, sir, and, more tea, miss? But your eyes flick to the dumbwaiter every time the rope squeaks. And your hands never stop reaching for the key you now keep tied with twine inside your bodice. Just in case. You're a maid. But not just a maid anymore. Now you're also a keeper of secrets. A reader of diaries. A silent witness. And maybe, just maybe, the next girl who leaves without a trace. You wake to coughing. Not your own. It echoes faintly through the lower corridor, wet, rattling, the kind of sound that makes your skin prickle before your brain even catches up. You sit up in the narrow cot, blinking through the half-light, your candles burned low, and the room smells of damp linen and someone's old boots. The coughing gets worse, closer now, no attempt to muffle it. You scramble up, clumsily tugging on your apron and boots, and push open the door. It's Elsie. She's slumped near the scullery steps, one hand gripping the banister, the other wrapped around her middle like she's trying to hold herself together. Elsie? You whisper, heart suddenly loud. Her face is pale, gray, almost, and shiny with sweat. She tries to speak but ends up wheezing. It sounds like a broken kettle trying to scream. You grab her arm. She's boiling hot. Later, you'll barely remember how you got her up to the attic, tucked into her own cot. Water fetched. Cloth wrung out. The cook summoned from her snoring stupor. But you remember the look the butler gave when he came to check. Not concern. Not worry. Calculation. You'd like to think that's just paranoia from reading secret diaries. But you've seen that look before. It's the same one the housekeeper uses when weighing butter, or deciding which maid gets scolded for yesterday's smudged crystal. Within the hour, Elsie is moved, not to the master bedroom, not to the city doctor, to the servant sick room. A glorified broom closet with a cot, a chamber pot, and one cracked window. No one else is allowed in. The housekeeper tells you, voice tight, it's likely just a chill. Do not concern yourselves, but concern yourself you do. Because the next morning, the sick room is locked. And by evening, someone else has already been assigned Elsie's duties. Historical fact. Victorian employers had the legal right to dismiss domestic servants without notice if they fell ill, especially with contagious diseases like typhus or tuberculosis. No severance, no support, just gone. You try to ask questions. How is she? You whisper to the footman carrying up broth. He shrugs. Didn't see her. Left the tray and left. The house operates like nothing's changed. Breakfast is laid. Silver is polished. A child throws jam on the parlor rug and you scrub it out like always. Except now you also look up whenever anyone coughs. Because here's the thing. Sickness travels. Through touch. Through air. Through poorly washed linens. And when the house is sealed up like this one, every shared ladle and mop handle becomes a potential threat. But no one speaks it aloud. Victorian England, for all its corsets and tea dances, was riddled with fear. Not fear of war, not even of scandal, Fear of contagion. Plagues had haunted the country for centuries. And even in the 19th century, they still didn't fully understand how disease spread. Germ theory was still debated. Miasma, bad air, was often blamed. So you light candles, burn herbs, crack windows when you can. But mostly, you wait. You try to stay awake at night, ears tuned for another cough, another fevered groan, another footstep at the wrong hour. And you wonder, how many girls have gotten sick in this house? How many were quietly replaced? It's a fringe tidbit, but some households, especially the grander ones, were rumored to keep unofficial, maid cemeteries, on the edge of the estate. No records, no gravestones, just a stretch of land behind the trees, where nothing ever grew quite right. You ask Cook about this. She doesn't deny it, just says, you'd be wise to wash your hands more. On the third day, the sick room is unlocked. You sneak a peek when no one's looking. It's empty. The cot stripped. The water bowl gone. You don't ask where Elsie is. No one mentions her again. Not even the new girl. Brought in from another household. Who wears her cap a little too neatly and flinches whenever the bells ring. Historians still argue whether the brutal treatment of ill servants was a product of ignorance or cruelty. Some claim mistresses simply didn't know how sick their staff truly were. Others say they did, and didn't care. That survival of the fittest wasn't just a theory. It was house policy. You keep working. You scrub and lift and bow and smile. But now, you also breathe through a handkerchief. You boil your own linens in secret. And you never, ever, touch the dumbwaiter rope again. Just in case. You find it folded under your blanket. A letter. Not a servant's note. Not a grocery list. A real letter, creamy paper. Thick and crisp. With your name spelled out in looping black ink you don't recognize. Your first thought is, I'm in trouble. But you open it anyway. Slowly, carefully, like it might bite. Inside are 3 short lines. If you want out, meet me by the stables. After the 10 o'clock bell. No signature. No name. But there's something else. Tucked between the folds. A railway ticket. One way. London to York. You stare at it so long your vision blurs. Is this a trick? A test? You've heard stories from the older maids. About girls who tried to run. Who ended up in workhouses. Or worse, one supposedly disappeared entirely, only for her shoes to turn up months later at the foot of the garden. Laces tied together in a neat bow. And yet, your hands are trembling with possibility. Because here's what you know. Elsie's gone. You're next. Or maybe not sick, just tired. Of the same gray hours. Of invisible bruises on your ribs from laundry tubs and elbows and bending too long. Of never sitting straight. Of being told how to smile. So you keep the letter hidden. Even from the others. You press it against your chest when you sleep. You reread it during lulls in the pantry. You try not to think about what out really means. That night, the house is quiet. A velvet sort of silence. The rain has stopped, but the windows still weep. 10 o'clock. The hall clock chimes. 1, 2, 3. You wait for the others to stir. For someone to notice you sitting up. No one does. So you slide from your cot. Grab your boots. And tiptoe past the others. Each bundled like sacks of breathing laundry. The corridor creaks like it's tattling on you. You freeze. No voices. You press on. Downstairs. The kitchen is still warm. A coal glows faintly in the stove. Like the house has a heartbeat. You don't dare take food. You already feel like a thief. By the time you reach the stables, your socks are wet. Mud squelches at your ankles. And there, by the side gate, is him. The footman. The one who maybe winked at you. Or maybe just had something in his eye. He's got a cap pulled low and a coat that's too big for him. When he sees you, he nods. Just once. You sure? He says. You blink. No one's ever asked if you're sure about anything before. You nod. Train leaves in an hour, he says. And pulls open the gate. We've got to walk fast. As you step into the road, the city feels different, wider, colder, like you've entered a painting that hasn't been fully colored in yet. You walk in silence, past gas lamps, past bakers' carts left out to cool, past cats and barrels and smells you've only ever half noticed until now. You think about what you're leaving behind. Your cot, your broom, your place, your role. Because that's the thing about being a Victorian maid. You may feel invisible, but you're also locked in place. A pawn in a rigid social chessboard. moving only when someone above says so. But this is your move. And it's terrifying. Historical fact. During the late 19th century, thousands of young domestic servants left their posts and moved to cities seeking factory jobs. While conditions there were often just as harsh, the pay was sometimes better, and they gained a kind of freedom not possible in live-in service roles. You ask him why he's helping you. He shrugs. Because I'm next too. You reach the station just as the sky begins to bruise with light. He disappears after helping you onto the platform. No goodbyes, just a nod, and he's gone. You sit on the bench, ticket clenched in your palm, surrounded by a handful of others, vendors, travelers, a man with a trunk twice his size. And for the first time in what feels like forever, you wait without a bell telling you to move. You notice the breeze, the sound of a pigeon cooing under the eaves, a child asleep on her mother's lap. The train groans into the station like a steel dragon, puffing and clanking. You step aboard. The carriage smells of coal smoke and oiled leather. It rocks gently as you sit. Your skirt brushes against a stranger's. No one glares. You hold the window edge with one hand and look back. London stretches into grey. The rooftops you used to scrub. The streets you never got to walk. And somewhere behind you, a house resets itself. Bells ringing. Boots stomping. Names called. Without yours. Fringe tidbit. A few rare cases exist in Victorian records of maids who fled service and reinvented themselves completely. One later became a published author under a male pseudonym. Another ran a hat shop that outlived the century. Historians still argue whether these escapes were acts of desperation or defiance. Some say these girls were reckless. Others say they were brilliant. That they saw cracks in the gilded system and dared to slip through. As the train pulls out, you wonder what history will say about you. Will you be a story? A warning? Or just another girl who disappeared before breakfast? The wheels click beneath you like a metronome marking the rhythm of your escape. You don't know what's waiting in York. You only know what you've left behind. The carriage sways. Outside the window, fields blur past, green, gray, then gold. Trees hunch in rows like quiet spectators. You shift in your seat, fingers tracing the window's edge. Suddenly aware of the calluses you've earned, of the coal still caught beneath your nails. You don't belong here, and yet, you do. The other passengers barely glance your way. No one shouts orders. No one tells you to hurry. No bells. No boots on the stairs. Just the hum of motion and a faint smell of biscuits someone's brought aboard. You exhale, really exhale, for the first time in days. Maybe weeks. This isn't freedom yet, but it's the first whisper of it. The city of York greets you with mist and the sound of hooves on cobblestone. The station bustles. Porters shout. A woman in a wide purple hat argues about luggage. You stand on the edge, heart racing, until someone bumps past and reminds you that standing still isn't safe here either. You walk. Anywhere. Nowhere. Through streets that curl like ribbon and alleys that smell of fish and rain. You pass bakeries and bookstores and pubs with wooden signs that creak like old ships. And then, by sheer accident, you find it. A shop front, plain and painted green, with a card in the window that reads, "Help wanted, apprentice milliner." You barely know what a milliner is. But you open the door. Inside, velvet bolts of fabric, hat boxes stacked to the ceiling, and a woman with ink on her fingers and a pin in her teeth. She looks up, takes in your face, your clothes, the uncertainty stitched into your shoulders. "Well," she says, "you any good with a needle?" You nod, though you're not sure. She smiles. "We'll find out. Apron's there. Don't stab yourself." And just like that, a different life begins. It's not easy. Nothing is. But there's laughter here. And color. And the smell of lilacs in the spring when the doors are left open. You learn to shape brims. To cut ribbon. To balance a tray of spools with your hip while threading a needle with your teeth. You start dreaming again. Not of escape, but of design. Of feathers and glass buttons and someday, your own storefront. Historical fact. The millinery trade was one of the few fashion-adjacent professions where Victorian women could apprentice and eventually rise to ownership. By the 1880s, some women milliners were supporting entire households on their earnings. Your hands stay busy, but in a different rhythm. One you chose. No more polishing brass at dawn. No more cold baths and colder stairs. You still work hard, but it's work that builds something, not just polishes someone else's already shiny life. You write a letter, eventually, to the footman. You don't know where to send it, so you just address it to the old house. No return name, just thanks. And a story he can tell the next girl who needs a gate opened at 10 p.m. Because there will always be another girl. Another you. Fringe tidbit. In Victorian newspapers, you can find scattered classified ads written by anonymous maids seeking escape, pleas for help. Hidden in the margins of sewing tutorials or next to marriage announcements. Little coded lifelines. Long before the age of hashtags or hotlines. Historians still argue whether the Victorian servant system was truly inescapable, or if women simply lacked choices. But in your case, you found one, or made one. And now, each morning, as you tie the ribbon on a new hat, as the sun spills onto the countertop and the bells ring not for orders but for customers, you remember. You remember the kitchen coal and the chamber pots, the silent rules and invisible bruises. But mostly, you remember waking up, and choosing not to go back to sleep. Wind down, 300 words. The sky outside your shop dims to lavender. You light a single lamp in the back room. Then sit, breathing in the soft quiet that wraps around your new life like a shawl. The scissors lie folded on the table. The hat you've just finished waits patiently on its stand, round, plum-colored, trimmed with lace. You think of all the lives you've worn. Scullery maid, ghost chaser, chamber pot champion, and now, maker of beautiful things. The rain begins again, gentle this time, a lullaby for rooftops. You press your palms against your knees, feeling the ache, but also the strength. The proof you survived something invisible and immense. Out on the street, the last carriages roll past. Footsteps fade. A cat darts under a cart. You close the shop door. You don't bolt it. You don't have to. And as you blow out the candle one wick at a time, your eyes grow heavier. Your breathing slows. The past drifts away like steam from a kettle. You're not running anymore. Not waiting for permission. Just here. Still. At peace. Wrapped in soft wool and the knowledge that while you may have started as a Victorian maid, you didn't stay one. And now, as sleep curls around your shoulders like smoke, you exhale one last time. You made it. You're safe. You're free. Good night. End of script. Sweet dreams.